Hello, friends. I'm Steve Russell, sales manager for Evergreen Digital Showroom in Lebanon, Missouri. Today, I want to bring you the first in a series of videos that will feature a couple of automotive brands that went out of production over a half century ago and how the history and legacy of those companies impacted the American auto industry. We'll start with Packard. When one thinks of American manufacturers of luxury automobiles today, it's likely Cadillac and Lincoln are at the top of that list. There was a time, however, when the Packard Motor Car Company held a position near the top of the world's luxury automobile market, competing with the likes of Rolls-Royce and Mercedes-Benz on the international stage. Packards hold a very special place in the collector car world, and we have several Packards in our portfolio. In 1899, James Ward Packard, his brother William, and a gentleman named George Louis Weiss started a company manufacturing vehicles under the Packard name in Warren, Ohio. Weiss was a major stockholder in the Winton Company, another automotive builder, and owned one of their cars. A mechanical engineer, James Packard critiqued the Winton vehicle Weiss owned and made several suggestions for improvements to company owner Alexander Winton, which were totally ignored. Impressed with the suggestions, Weiss jumped ship and entered into a partnership with the Packard brothers. Some 400 automobiles were manufactured at the Warren factory through 1903. Henry Bourne Joy, a member of one of Detroit's most prominent families, bought one of those automobiles and was so impressed with the quality and reliability, he put together an ownership group to refinance and rename the company the Packard Motor Car Company. Operations were moved to Detroit, and from that point the Packard name became synonymous with luxury automobiles. When vehicles from other well-known marques were priced in the $375 to $750 range, Packard models started at $2,600. If you drove a Packard, you were a person of means. This is the oldest Packard we have in our portfolio at present, a 1910 seven-passenger touring car. As you can see, it was obviously a luxury car for that time. It's been restored, but one can see the ornate detail of the car still today. This is another Packard from just a few years later, a very rare 1914 Dominant 6. This will be one of the next cars to undergo restoration after our shop gets the mechanicals all sorted out and working properly. In the 1920s, Packard was not only the best-selling luxury brand in the United States, they also sold vehicles in over 60 foreign countries. When the stock market crashed in late 1929, bringing on the Great Depression, Packard doubled down and introduced even more luxurious cars than they had previously built. Their Detroit factory housed craftsmen representing over 80 different trades, and they were among the very best at their respective trade. The slogan that they used in all their advertising was, "Ask the man that owns one." Packard was a very different car company. The company was innovative and credited for introducing the steering wheel, replacing the tiller bar steering system at that time. Packard was one of the first companies to use a production 12-cylinder engine in their vehicles, and they were the first to put air conditioning in a passenger car. Where most other auto manufacturers introduced new models each year, Packard produced their cars in series. Some series lasted almost 2 years, with others lasting as little as 7 months. Bowing to superstition, the 13th series was omitted. Packard weathered the Great Depression better than many other luxury auto manufacturers. Thanks to their success in the 1920s, the company enjoyed a good cash position when the Depression began. Still, by the middle 1930s, management felt the need to expand the brand by making a vehicle that fell into the medium price range of just under $1,000, and in 1935 they introduced the Packard 120. Known as the Junior Series, this car was built utilizing mass production methods, where the Senior Series cars were essentially hand-built. Packard unit sales tripled in 1935 and then doubled again in 1936, thanks mostly to the lower-priced cars. The Junior line's introduction is credited as the major reason Packard survived the Depression when other luxury brands such as Peerless, Marmon, Stutz, Duesenberg, and Pierce Arrow ceased production. But in the eyes of brand loyalists, it also somewhat diminished Packard's standing as an upscale car company. The domestic auto industry had barely recovered from the Great Depression when the United States entered World War II in early 1942. Packard, like all the other major car companies, converted their factory to military production and ceased civilian manufacturing. When the war ended in 1945, Other car companies introduced fresh designs, while Packard relied on the styling from their 1941 models with minor sheet metal changes. Even though somewhat dated, car demand was high and the new Packard sold very well for a few years. A few years later, though, Packard's conservative design was aging as fast as their loyal customer base. Older drivers showed a tendency to keep their vehicles longer, putting dealers at a disadvantage compared with the competition. A survey in the early 1950s showed that something less than 25% of Packard new car sales came from people who had owned another brand. Combine that with Ford and Chrysler raiding existing Packard dealerships, along with an aging executive structure resistant to change, and the stage was set for failure. Independent car companies like Packard, Studebaker, Nash, and Hudson were finding it increasingly difficult to compete with the big three, General Motors, Ford, and Chrysler, so the idea of a merger between those four companies was floated. While that merger never happened, Packard purchased the ailing Studebaker company in October 1954, and shortly thereafter, Hudson and Nash merged to form American Motors. It's not clear whether Packard officials failed to conduct their due diligence in the transaction, or if crucial information as to Studebaker's dismal financial condition was withheld, but the merger spelled the beginning of the end for Packard. Within 5 years, the Packard nameplate would disappear among new car manufacturers. The last Packard was built at the Detroit factory in June 1956, with production moving to the Studebaker factory in South Bend, Indiana. For the 1957 and 1958 model years, Packards were little more than rebadged Studebakers. This contributed to the perception by Packard loyalists that the brand's luxury image and quality was vastly deteriorated, and in 1958 marked the final year for the Packard name. The next few years, the same fate would fall on the DeSoto, Edsel, Hudson, Nash, and Kaiser nameplates. It was a turbulent time among American automobile manufacturers. The Studebaker name continued on through the 1966 model year before it met its demise, and the story of that company will be the subject of our next video. Thanks for taking the time to watch. I invite you to visit our website, www.evergreendigitalshowroom.com, where we have a sampling of the vehicles we have offered for sale. Feel free to give me a call at 417-532-8000 if you're in the market for a classic collectible vehicle. I welcome the opportunity to talk to you.